One of the most shocking moments out of the entire hip hop feud of 2024 was when J. Cole decided to apologize for dropping the 7 minute drill freestyle and removing it from DSPs, and the way in which he did it as well, which was apologizing to Kendrick Lamar in front of 50,000 people. And what ended up transpiring after was very interesting because, of course, the dust would end up settling between Kendrick Lamar and Drake, but J. Cole would end up staying active, hopping on a variety of different features, but never actually addressing the beef itself and what his perspective was now that it was completed. And a lot of people were wondering, are we going to hear about his perspective maybe on his next album, The Fall Off? Maybe is he going to put out a record that addresses it? Well, Thursday night in October, we get this new song, Port Antonio, seemingly out of nowhere, and J. Cole is finally addressing the beef and his new thoughts on it on the second verse of this song. So let's get into this, bro, because this is one of the biggest looming questions in hip-hop was, how does Cole feel about this? What are his thoughts? Whose side is he on? So many different opinions and thoughts about, where his thoughts lied, but how do you feel about just the idea of this song existing? Was it needed?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it finally came from his mouth because there was a lot of people that were speculating, Cole's taking a side. I've only seen him, do records with ASAP Rocky. I've seen him do records with Daylight, who's a Top Dog Entertainment affiliate. So, he must have chose a side. I knew that was a crock of shit since I heard it. I'm like, dude, there's no way. Because he's deciding to collaborate with people. Business is business. He has records. Maybe he cleared them even before they ended up coming out. Like, there's so much shit that we don't know about, and I feel like that was pure speculation, and that's why I think we didn't add commentary on that, because once you start getting into that type of politics, no one's right, and I just felt like there was no foundational grounds on that. So to be able to actually hear Cole's perspective, I feel like it ties a lot of loose ends, and especially after getting the track from Kendrick earlier in September, it was nice because that kind of felt like he was turning a new page, right? There was the whole conversation of no more round twos. Drake has this new album apparently with P&D dropping, so it feels like everyone's kind of going into a different direction, right? But now with J. Cole, it felt like this was truly like the closing chapter, right? It was sort of like he watched it all transpire in front of him. He feels like the decision he made back in the month of April was the right one to make. And he feels like he made this decision not only for himself, but for Drake and Kendrick Lamar themselves, right? Because the way that he goes into the second verse, and I feel like that's where the meat and the potatoes are, he talks about how, he didn't want to go into this battle because he would have lost a friend, and then after that he gives Drake advice, yada, yada, yada. So let's get into this, Lou. What were your first thoughts on it, and what were the most interesting lyrics coming out of Port Antonio?
Well, yeah, first of all, what a smooth record. This is definitely a Song of the Year contender for me, and I do want to say that it does feel like this song is part of this last phase of the feud where it's sort of like the epilogue, where it's people giving closing statements, their final thoughts after having time to sit with everything, like we saw with Watch the Party Die by Kendrick. Now we have J. Cole's side of it, and we may or may not get Drake's side of it because he's the only one that's yet to speak about it in retrospect. So it's going to be cool to see if we do get Drake sort of reminiscing back on it and giving updated thoughts on it, even though you could say he did it briefly on No Face and other songs. It wasn't really introspective in the way that this song was, or Kendrick's Watch the Party Die. But this is incredible. And it's cool because the song is kind of split in two, it feels like, right? Like the first verse and the second verse are very different. There is one line within the first verse, and I can read it out, where he does seemingly mention his position and his role within the beef, but mostly the first verse sees J. Cole reminisce back on his days in the Ville and how he feels a bit of grief for his friend who decided to go on a darker path than he did in pushing weight, and sort of, how that affected him and how it sort of made his purpose a bit clearer as he saw his life change and his life turn around as his father wasn't around anymore, and also how he was living through poverty and having to deal with a new father figure coming into his life, and how the one thing that was able to boost his confidence was spilling his thoughts from pen to paper, and how that gave him a confidence boost. And pretty much J. Cole is explaining his love for hip-hop and reminding us that he is hip-hop to the core, and that's why I loved it so much. But the line in question, and I want to get your interpretation on on it, is when Cole raps, "I was Mike in red leather trying to tell him to stop. You better beat it before you see the heavy metal get popped." So do you think that he is rapping about his friend who took a left turn back in the Ville, or is he maybe talking about either Drake or Kendrick?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a part of the first verse, so it's going to play into the motives of it. But at the same time, if you watch the Beat It video, you have Michael Jackson standing in between two gentlemen, and he's kind of separating them from fighting. So it could also be interpreted that Cole is saying, I was in the middle of this, and maybe he wanted them to stop. Maybe he felt like it wasn't the right path. Obviously, he felt like that wasn't the right path because he addressed it within the song. And you're right. This is one of the only moments within this first verse where you really get maybe the first couple of bars addressing this whole beef. So
But that internal rhyme scheme on that
Crazy.
first verse is amazing, guys. The technical rapping that's on display here from Cole is amazing.
yeah, the mocked, op, stop, popped, shot, block, knock, rock. The way that he rhymes that whole last part of the first verse is absolutely stupid. Then you get a crazy bridge and chorus from Cole, very simple, but feels like there's vocal effects, whatever the case may be. The track kind of slows down, kind of takes a bit more of a melodic turn, and then boom, you get the second verse. And this is really where you start diving in. So Lou, do you want to go into this?
Absolutely. So of course you really have J. Cole sort of explaining himself really for why he decided to take a step back and not really involve himself. And it's really interesting to me because this felt like Cole was saying, you can't really have a friendly rap battle in this era that doesn't get bogged down by these false online narratives and by these internet politics. Like, it seems like he doesn't like the current arena in which these battles are taking place, and because of everything that he witnessed and everything that he sensed would happen from that point forward. And you get Cole rapping about that when he says, let me go to it real quick. Here we go. If since the age of 14, Jermaine is no king. If that means I got to dig up dirt and pay a whole team of algorithm bot guys just to sway the whole thing on social media, competing for your favorable memes. So yeah, right there you get Cole rapping about, again, why in this current climate he doesn't fuck with the way that beefs are handled. And we saw how toxic it got between the two fan bases. So I could see where he's coming from with that.
For sure, he didn't like the internet antics. But then after that, well, a bit before
That, yeah.
a bit before that, at least, I think that, yeah, this is considered maybe like midway through the second verse, or
Yeah.
maybe even like 25% in. He explains why he had to pull the plug, and he literally says this: "I pulled the plug because I seen where that was about to go. They wanted blood, they wanted clicks to make their pockets grow. They see this fire in my pen and think I'm dodging smoke. I wouldn't have lost a battle, dog. I would have lost a bro. I would have gained a foe. And for what?" And then after that, he goes into the passage that you were reading out. And this is so interesting, right? Because I don't think anyone questioned J. Cole's pen, but people were questioning his motives, right? And there was the whole conversations of, you're a rapper. You know, you initiated into this rap battle. You're in the octagon. You have to go out. Like, don't fucking throw a stone and then hide your hand. And that was an ongoing conversation, especially in the month of April. But I feel like, especially as time has sort of passed, his decision has aged extremely well. I'm not saying it's aged better than Kendrick's. I'm not saying it's aged better than Drake's. I don't want to play that game. It's aged well for him and for what he has to do. At the end of the day, his relationships are still intact with Drake. They're still intact with Kendrick. He's able to do what he wants.
From what we know. From what we know.
Well, not only that, but Drake liked the song on IG. That was another piece of information.
It was.
So he obviously appreciates the track. And I think that...
But there's also, just to stay on that point for a second,
Yeah.
there's also people that are speculating now saying that Kendrick won't like this approach, that Kendrick is going to drop Meet the Coles. Like, people have to calm down on all that. I think that we saw the way in which Kendrick decided to sort of, I want to say, show mercy to J. Cole on a lot of the tracks that you got since the release of 7 Minute Drill. That in itself proved the respect that Kendrick had for J. Cole.
Well,
so
I also think that Kendrick's past this, especially with the track that dropped in September.
sure.
At
For sure.
the end of the day,
That-
you okay? Because this is the thing, though. You go back to that track in September, and Kendrick's motives were really centered and aligned with trying to change the rap industry and trying to like filter out all the foes that were really ingrained and that were making bad music. And he probably felt like Drake was a part of that, right? Like, You know, he wanted to kill the party. He was like, enough is enough. Like, he had to come in and he had to stomp. Cole was never a part of that. You know, if you really look at Kendrick's motives, and especially on that last track, he explains it in deep detail. If you want to have that conversation, I don't think Cole was ever in his sights. I think it was a straight on FPS. I think Cole took the bait, and Kendrick might have been ready. He probably would have been ready. He probably would have had that track ready for him as well. Maybe you get a track like Euphoria, but instead of the motive being completely against Drake, maybe you have both of them. Who knows what the fuck would have happened? But that's not the route that we're on right now. And especially with the route that J. Cole's taking, where it's like, let's make times of peace. You know, let's get back together. Like, let's build some shit up. You know, like, that's important. You know, you're not going to come into that and just fucking start to nuking it. You know, it doesn't make any sense.
I do want to say this, though, as a hip-hop head, and there's a lot of narratives about how J. Cole still took the easy way out, still wasn't able to confront him. He was fearing Kendrick Lamar. I'm sorry, bro, but if you've been listening to J. Cole, not only on this song, but the verse on A Plate of Collard Greens and everything that he's been doing in recent memory, then you would know that we would have been in for a hell of a fucking lyrical sparring match if Kendrick and J. Cole actually got into it for the sake of proving who the better rapper was. And I think that's also why, in retrospect, 7 Minute Drill felt a little bit empty and felt little bit weak, because you could have told that his intentions were to show the world that he's a better rapper than Kendrick Lamar, but not discredit his character or throw hateful terms towards him. Like, I think that's what's one of the most interesting parts of all of this, is that J. Cole's right in saying that he wouldn't have been afraid to go at him as an MC. He was afraid to go at him as a human being because of what the damage would have been.
And he also sympathizes with them, right? Because he raps this like a bit deeper into the verse. He says, I understand the thirst of being first that made them both swing, protecting legacies, so lines got crossed, perhaps regrettably, My friends went to war. I walked away with all their blood on me. Now, some will discredit me, trying to wipe away my pedigree, but please find a guy out that's rapping this incredibly.
That's what I'm saying, bro. He's right.
He's right. He's absolutely right. And the whole J. Cole's boring. Fuck him. You know, he didn't get into this beef. He didn't do it. Like, what are we talking about here? You want to talk about the Ruby Rosary verse? Grippy. Like, okay, I guess that's the only thing you could really stick on him. But at the same time, he's been delivering verse after verse. So once you're at this point, you know, because then we're gonna go into the whole Drake conversation once we get towards the end of this verse.
Yeah.
How locked in were you, man? Like, what was the emotion?
Bro, I was just on cloud nine. This just felt like vital hip hop music. And that's what's interesting too, is that it does feel like Kendrick's mission to bring substance back to the game, to have this sort of reborn spell in hip hop. It seems like J. Cole's music and artistry has always been aligned with that in terms of spitting real shit. And that's what he did here. He spoke from the heart, and I was hanging on to every single word that he was rapping. So loved everything that he brought to it. Before we get to that Drake part, how did you feel about the production? Because, bro, as soon as I heard those piano keys come in, and I'm like, fuck yes, he's doing it again. He's rapping over that Dead Presidents 2 sample. How did you feel about it?
I loved it. It was done by Omen and who else?
Omen, DZL, and Cole himself.
I really enjoyed it. I think it was a sentimental production because you needed something to go in and that like was going to grab you automatically. It's going to be a crazy late night drive song.
Just gave you the mixtape vibe.
Yeah,
this is the third time that he's rapped over that beat.
I think you could tell how much he
loves the production.
How much he loves this beat. So also shout out to Cleo Soul. She got sampled within this song as well. But yeah, I really like the production. This whole track is so well calculated.
It is.
Everything from the beat, to the writing, everything was so well approached. And then we end up getting the bombshells towards the end of it, right? And this was a nice passage. I really fucked with this. I really enjoyed how Cole attacked the whole situation with Drake, and he did it in such a peaceful way. This is crazy. He says, they say I'm picking sides. Hey, don't you lie on me, my. To start another war, hey, Drake, you'll always be my. I ain't ashamed to say you did a lot for me, my. Fuck all the narratives. Tap back into that magic pen is what's imperative. Remind these folks why we do it.
Yeah.
It's not for beefing. It's for speaking our thoughts, pushing ourselves, reaching the charts, reaching your minds, deep in your heart, screaming to find emotions to touch. Beautiful. Crazy. Couldn't have said it better.
So poetic.
And bro, I never fucked with those narratives. I never fucked with those narratives.
About J. Cole going on Kendrick's side, yeah. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit, bro. I mean, the guy's allowed to fucking collaborate, bro. Like, it's music at
It's
the end of the
business
day.
at the end of the day. It's the
Yeah.
basic concept of business.
Yeah.
These guys know. These guys are doing what they're doing because of collaborations.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a fucking gossip party, whatever the case. No, he was neutral. He's allowed to do whatever he does. That's what it is. And as I said, that verse on Ruby Rosary could have been cleared. It could have been cleared a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
it's,
the video could have been shot, right?
nobody knows.
And nobody knows. So it's like, why the fuck are people talking about industry politics when no one truly knows?
And at the end of the day,
That was frustrating.
And at the end of the day, even if it wasn't recorded, Ruby Rosary, let's say, for instance, before everything had happened, who gives a fuck, bro? Like, it's not like J. Cole has to inherit Drake's ops, bro. At the end of the day, he's his own man. He can have his own relationships, and it doesn't need to sort of be a factor in terms of who he decides to make art with, bro, at the end of the day. So I'm happy that he addressed that, and I'm happy that he's also giving Drake some motivation. You know, like, we could tell that, I mean, it doesn't take much to tell that there's been a lot of harsh narratives around Drake right now, and there's a lot of doubt in terms of what he's going to be able to do, if he'll be able to bounce back. And to see someone of Cole's pedigree tell Drake, like, listen, bro, fuck all the noise, go back to doing what you do best and make some quality music. I love it, bro. I love the positivity that is being ushered throughout this whole song. And honestly speaking, if this was the last time any of the three of them address this beef, it would be a beautiful closing note, in my opinion. And Cole just continues to remind us that he is one of the best rappers in the game right now, bro.
Well, to ever do it.
That's what this, yeah, for sure.
To ever do it.
That's what this was a reminder of. So let me ask you this, all right? Closing question. Is this the end of J. Cole addressing the matter, in your opinion? Or do you think that he might continue to speak on it, let's say, on the fall off?
I think you might get some. Honestly, no. I think this is the
he's
end
done.
of it.
I think he's done.
I wanted to go with the safe answer and say yeah, but I think this is the perfect send-off. He's so calculated. And I think this is also a great chess move for him. Because now, like, there's no loose ends.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say anything to Cole after this. What are you gonna say? I think, you know, you're gonna look a bit weird if you continue to, like, go after Cole for, like, doing what he did. You know, like, a year down the line. It's like, okay, bro, let's get over it. Let's get back to the music. And I think that as much as, you know, it was un grand spectacle and, like, you know, it was beautiful to watch, you know, you saw two MCs go spar, whatever the case may be, it's time to get back to the music.
Fuck yeah.
It's time to get solo studio albums from Cole. It's time to get music from Kendrick. It's time to get good focused music from Drake. Please, let's move into a different direction. I feel like 2024 took a bit of a hit from the mainstream album side of things because of the whole war. It's like, who the fuck wanted to drop within that climate, and who's going to drop even after it, especially with all these narratives going around and all the press coverage being around them. So I think, listen, it's a great move. Do you feel the same way? Do you think that this is a perfect move for him?
I think this is a great way for J. Cole to have to make his biggest album to date, in terms of the one that he's anticipated the most, not have to be a victim of the moment. Because if he had waited to deliver it on the fall off, that album might have been plagued and been forever connected to the beef itself. Now he's able to start on a clean slate and make that album live on its own two legs and not have to be an afterthought of the beef. That's what I'm happy about, is now he has freedom with the fall off to rap about whatever the fuck he wants, and to claim that he's the GOAT if he wants to. If he's going to keep rapping at this level, listen, bro, it's going to be up for debate for who the best rapper alive is. Again, some people are going to say that it'll forever be Kendrick because of the decision he made, but I think that there's going to be different arguments made, especially if the fall off is an album that is on the level of quality that we're imagining it being. But guys, let us know down in the comments, what do you think the future holds for J. Cole, for Kendrick? Are you excited for the fall off? Let us know. And of course, we're going to be covering new releases from the big three and from a load of your favorite hip hop artists. So make sure to smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you guys for watching till the end, and we'll see you next time. Peace.